All right, so now that we know what cloud infrastructure versus local infrastructure is, and now that we know what a PBX server does, we can now get into the discussion of whether or not you should have a cloud-hosted PBX server or a local PBX server. So I want to go over some of the benefits and some of the disadvantages of each system. Before I get into that, if you come away from this video with any piece of knowledge, it's that you should not trust most of the websites online that are telling you to buy one type of system versus another type of system. Very often, if they're a company that sells cloud service solutions, they're going to tell you all the great things about the cloud service solutions, like it's the second coming of the Messiah, and how everything else is just a steaming pile of crap. And if you go to a website where they primarily sell local PBX-based phone solutions that you own, they're going to talk about how cloud is terrible for this, that, and the other. And the big problem here is that a lot of these companies will make it seem like they're giving you unbiased information. Like this article or this blog post is made to help you and educate you, when in reality, it's just meant to sell you on their specific type of solution. So what I want you to understand is that most of these companies want to sell you the type of solution that they are selling. They're not interested in educating you fully on the differences between the solutions. They're not interested in giving you, both sides. They're really just interested in selling what they sell. So just have a healthy skepticism anytime you read information on the internet about these systems, and ask yourself, who is doing the writing? Is it a developer for this type of for a specific system, or is it salesman for a specific type of system? Is it a company that only sells a specific type of system, or is it somebody who actually has a lot of voice over IP knowledge, or somebody who just doesn't have bias? So I'm not going to say that I know everything there is to know about voice over IP, but I don't have a bias because I don't sell a specific type of service. My business sells solutions. So we sell setups, we sell consulting, we sell telling you what it is you should get. So whether what system you use doesn't really matter. I'll get paid anyway, and and we don't get a kickback from any of these service providers. That being said, let's go on to discuss cloud solutions versus local solutions and some of the benefits and the disadvantages of each. Now, first things first, let's talk about maintenance. Now, with a cloud solution, maintenance can often be easier than with a local solution for the very basic reason that it is not your responsibility. So again, with the cloud solution, the server or the system with the cloud solution, that's going to be at the data center. That's going to be at the service provider. And because the system is going to be at the service provider, now it's on them to deal with everything that's going on with their system. It's very much like renting a car. So if I buy a car, and let's say I drive it perfectly, I'm not doing anything wrong, I drive it like a regular driver, and the engine just dies on it. I'm renting the car, I'm renting that engine, therefore if something goes wrong with it, it is up to the car rental service to fix that. It's up to the car rental service to deal with that because it's not my car. So I can call them and say, I've been using the car for this long. This is what happened. This is how I've been driving. You can come take this car back. It's not my problem. Whereas if I bought this car and it's out of warranty, if I bought the car, I own the car, I own the broken engine. And if the insurance company decides that they don't want to cover it for some reason, then I own the $5,000 bill to rebuild that engine because it's my car. I'm the one who has to get it towed to a service center. I'm the one who has to choose a service center. I'm the one who has to deal with the service center. I'm the one who has to deal with the downtime. I'm the one who has to pay the bill. It's all on me because it's mine. And the same is true with any type of server, any type of PBX system. If I own the system, if it's within my local infrastructure, I'm responsible for maintaining it. I'm responsible for installing patches. I'm responsible for if a hard drive or a power supply dies in it, I have to replace it, or I have to hire somebody whose job it is to replace it and make sure that they're doing their job right. It's all on me. All the maintenance is on me. With a cloud-based system, the maintenance, the entire task of maintenance is now on the cloud services provider. So if a hard drive dies, well, that's on them. If the power supply dies at 3 in the morning, that's on them to have somebody at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning wake up and fix it, or to have somebody there 24 hours to make sure it works. A lot of these service level agreements are such that if something dies at 3 in the morning, they will actually fix it at 3:30 in the morning. Now, the next thing I want you to think about here with service is not just, well, how fast it gets done, but rather who is going to be doing the service. So if you're Microsoft, or you're Oracle, or you're Google, you can probably afford to have somebody sitting around that gets $250,000 a year who is an expert systems administrator with 20 years of experience, just setting up a system that's not going to fail and then just waiting for something to fail so that he can pounce on it and make sure everything goes smoothly. So, when anything happens. If you're a law firm with 6 people, if you're a pizzeria or a small restaurant, you're like, the pizzeria is not going to pay $200,000 a year for somebody to sit there and administer their IT. That doesn't make financial sense to a lot of small businesses. So when something goes wrong, they have to call somebody. If you have to call somebody, that's now going to take time, and that's going to be, that's just not a good thing. The other thing you have to worry about is how is it set up. So, for example, if you have a law, again, if you're Microsoft, you're Oracle, or you're Google, you can pay somebody to install the patches as you go. You can have somebody there at 3:30 in the morning that is there to set up a new virtual instance of that PBX server on server hardware. So let's say your PBX server dies at 3:30 in the morning. Well, the instance that was backed up 6 hours ago can then be brought back over to a new server at 3:35 by the administrator at the voice over IP services provider, and you're back up and running instantly. Now, if it's your own system, and let's say that fails at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and you're a pizzeria owner, again, you have to make pizza. You have to manage the people doing deliveries. You have to deal with phone-in orders. You have to deal with walk-in customers. You don't have the time to replace the hard drive and restore a backup in your phone system box. It's just not something that you're going to be equipped to do quickly. So the great part about having a cloud solution is that you take that maintenance hassle and you give it to somebody else. Because again, the cloud services provider, if they have 6,000 clients for their phone system, it's totally sensible for them to pay somebody $200,000 a year, or maybe 2 or 3 people to sit there in shifts just to make sure if anything goes wrong, it's dealt with instantly. And that these are also going to be qualified people. Again, somebody who owns a pizzeria may be great at making pizza. Somebody who owns a law firm may be a great trial attorney. Somebody who owns an investment firm may be a great stock analyst. But are they people who are good at administering IT? Maybe not. So you can have that person who's really good at this one task waiting by so that if anything goes wrong, it's dealt with. And you also have these people there to set up everything right to begin with. That person is going to install the server in a proper environment. That server is going to have a UPS on it so that if the electricity flickers for a second, it doesn't turn off quickly and have the hard drive corrupted. That server is going to have the patches installed regularly so that you don't have to fix it when it gets hacked. It just won't get hacked because the patches are being installed as you go. So now maintenance in a cloud environment is being dealt with by more qualified people who are always available. And this is often a great plus. It just takes that worry out of the way. With a local system, these are things you have to worry about. Now, the next thing to worry about here, the next thing to think about, is security. And this is an area where a lot of people who talk about cloud systems say a lot of really silly and funny things. So they'll say things like, well, you don't want to have your system hosted in the cloud. That means that it can get hacked, right? It's going to get hacked. Something wrong, bad is going to happen to it. Here's the thing. Your computer, if you want your PBX server to communicate with your voice over IP services provider, it has to do that over the internet. And then when it has to do that, my PBX has to talk to Voice Pulse in order to contact the PSTN. So let's just bring that picture back up again. So here's my phone. In order to if I want to call the pizzeria over here, my phone, my extension has to go to the PBX server. The PBX server goes over the internet. This goes over the internet to the voice over IP services provider. That then goes to the public switch telephone network that then connects me to the pizzeria. So if I want to be able to make phone calls, my PBX has to be on the internet. So it's not a question of whether or not it's going, you can't get hacked because it's local versus you can get hacked because it's in the cloud. It's going to be online anyway. It's just a question of whether or not it's going to be online in the cloud, or is it going to be online in your local infrastructure? Is it going to be online in a professional data center with somebody who gets paid $250,000 a year to put a $6,000 firewall in front of that, or is it going to be online in front of your $50 router in a pizzeria administered by somebody who makes great pizza, but doesn't who thinks that bash is what is not a console or a terminal. Bash is what you do to a cockroach that comes by that goes on the counter while you're making food. You're going to be on the internet anyway, so that whole idea of cloud being insecure because it's a way you have to contact it through the internet. You're on the internet already. But where are you on the internet? Again, are you on the internet behind your $50 Linksys router, or are you on the internet behind a $6,000 firewall put together by a $250,000 a year administrator? Again, not to mention also security patches. Is the pizzeria owner going to actually sit there, going through the website, scrolling through CentOS's website to see if there's been any security patches that need to be installed on the software on the operating system? Usually, practically, no, they're not. They're out, again, they're out doing investment banker things, they're out doing lawyer things, they're out doing pizzeria owner things. They're not looking for security flaws in their PBX system. The server administrator is. Now, let's talk about physical security, because this is another one that nobody thinks about. So with internet security, people think about it, but they kind of think about it wrong, in my opinion. When it comes to physical security, this is an aspect that I feel very few people bother to think about. So let's just take a basic example of carelessness. So I've been to a lot of restaurants where the server for their POS system is not in a rack, it's not in the closet, it's not stored away nicely. I've seen it where it's sitting on a shelf right next to a bunch of dishes and glasses and silverware and things that servers need to use. So how could this go wrong? Let's just use a basic example of my office over here. So in my office, I have my flux over here right next to my hot air station. And whoops, I went to reach for my flux and I just knocked this thing off, because it's not really a secure thing for the handpiece. Now, let's say a server is in a real rush, and you have your POS system, your phone system, right next to it. Let's say they're in a real rush and they're going to pick it up and bring the silverware somewhere. They may knock the PBX over. Now, this is something that's not going to happen in a cloud environment if it's properly administered, because that server is going to be in a rack. That server is going to be in a rack in a server room. It's going to be screwed into a rack in a server room. That server room is going to be limited. It's going to be limited in access to people who know what they're doing, who understand the ramifications of knocking things over, who understand that this is a server. And it's not going to be just sitting rinky-dink out there just waiting for anybody to knock it over. Now, you may be thinking, well, what if you're just talking about setup? You're supposed to set it up properly to begin with. If that was set up properly to begin with, that's not something that you can talk about. But that's the thing. A lot of private businesses, they have, again, they may be set up as a great law firm, they may be set up as a great pizzeria, they may be set up as an amazing investment bank. But when it comes to IT, what you're going to notice is that a lot of these places, even places that have good money, they have rinky-dink setups put together because it's just an afterthought. Where to put the box for the phone system is just an afterthought. It's not something that they're actively thinking about. So it's like, oh, there's free space in this shelf. Yeah, let's put it here. Whereas, and again, in a server room environment, since this is all they do, they're thinking about, how can we secure this properly so that nothing goes wrong with it? Because that is their entire business. If that server falls out of the rack, their 6,000 clients don't have voice service. Whereas if that little box falls, okay, the phone is down for 2 hours, nobody can order pizza. It's not as big a deal. And since it's not as big a deal at the local business as it is at the cloud service provider, it's not given that attention that it should be given. And again, I've walked into so many rinky-dink setups when it comes to physical security. It's ridiculous. One example comes down to about 5 or 6 years ago. So I was walking into this office to buy a bunch of BlackBerry Bolds. This was back when a BlackBerry Bold was actually worth something. They were throwing. This is one of those companies that just buys a new one when the screen gets cracked or the trackball stops working. So there was good money to be made just walking in and taking all their stuff and saying, "Here's $100, thank you very much," and walking out. And while I was in the office waiting to finish this transaction, this one guy I noticed, and I was kind of laughing, he's sitting at his computer on his lunch break, and he's trying to download this torrent and use this torrented software. Very obviously pirated from the discussion that he's having. And he can't get it to work on his computer. So then he asked the boss, he's like, "Hey, can I try to use this on one of your computers?" And it was one of these environments where they don't know a lot about IT, and they're also young people. They all get along well. It's this relaxed work environment. It's kind of like hipsterish work environment. He's like, "Sure, man. I'm using that. Well, everybody's computer's being used, but you can use that one." And he points to a computer that's not being used. The reason it's not being used by anybody is it's not supposed to. That's a Windows 2003 server box that's dealing with the 35 other machines so that the other 35 people at the office can do work. So he takes his little USB stick and he plugs it into the server, and he asks the guy for the password, and he finds it on a post-it inside of his desk drawer because, again, a lot of small businesses, the password is sitting on a post-it inside the desk drawer, and he gets the password and he installs the virus that he got from his torrent site, and 35 people now cannot work. And, these things do happen. So it's not even just about, not even just about like security in terms of being hacked. It's just about, is the server in an environment where idiocy is less likely to affect it. So again, in the cloud environment, when you walk into a data center, when you see the physical security checks they have in place, when you see that only certain qualified people are allowed to enter, you get this increased confidence in the security. Versus, again, when you walk into a restaurant where you see that their POS system and their PBX system is literally sitting next to a rack of dishes that very, very busy people are grabbing at. And you're right, you could totally set that up in a proper server room. The reality is, again, being honest with yourself, is that a priority for you? Is that something that you're going to be getting done? Can you trust that that is not going to get moved once you install it in that business environment? Can you trust that no employee is going to say, hey, that's a free computer. Can I try plugging my USB drive into it to try to install my torrent game or whatever to see if it works? If somebody needs an extra plug for something, can you trust that they're not going to say, I wonder what this is for. Let's find out by unplugging it, and then your phone system is down. So having the system in the cloud really, it just prevents a lot of that idiocy that happens that can happen when you have a system on premises. And that's something to think about. So, for example, if I walk into a business and they say they want a new phone system, and I see that they have, their servers or they're set up in a separate room, and that it's understood by all the staff that you're not allowed in this room, and I see that people respect that, I can recommend that I can at least think about giving you a local setup. If I walk into an office where I see that there are 90 wires all kludged together like this, and it's being strung together by a bunch of, the extension cords and, $10 power strips that then go to one outlet without a UPS, I'm not offering you local infrastructure because, one person goes to take a twist tie out of that and they're going to unplug everything and it's going to be destroyed. I would never. So you have to tailor what type of system you offer, what type of system you put together to the actual environment that you're in. Again, be realistic with yourself. Are you actually going to... Again, if I'm installing a system someplace where they're 2 blocks away and a service call is me simply walking over there, I'll feel more comfortable putting a local PBX system in than I will if it's a 2-hour drive out. So if I'm 2 hours away and I'm putting in a local system, I know that the absolute minimum response time, assuming I'm doing nothing, if they have a problem, is 2 hours. I may be more inclined to offer a cloud solution because if something goes wrong, I know there are people on staff to deal with it. And even if they don't catch it right away, I can just submit a support ticket. I submit my support ticket, away it goes. Now, the next thing to talk about here is ownership of the system. And this is where you start to see the local system start to, the benefits of the local system really start to kick in here. So let's go back over this over here where I'm talking about the PBX system. Let's go back over to the screen over here. Now remember, I can have a lot of phones behind my PBX server. So this is my PBX server. And let's just make one line over here that represents where everything is when I have a local infrastructure. So in a local infrastructure, all of this stuff is contained within my office. So the PBX server over here sees how many phones I have. So we can see that I have 2 phones, right? That's local infrastructure. The voice over IP services provider in this system has absolutely no idea how many phones I have. All the voice over IP services provider knows is who I'm calling and how long the call is. So they know that I called the YMCA for 5 minutes. They'll know that I called the pizzeria for 10 minutes. They can know that I called the locksmith for 1 minute. That's all they know. So all they can really bill me on here is minutes usage. That's it. Now let's go over a different environment. So let's say that this is my office over here, and let's inside the red, and let's make the blue. Let's talk about a cloud system. Let's say the PBX here is going to be hosted in the cloud. So I'm going to make my office. This is now my office, and now the stuff that's inside the blue is going to be what is hosted in the cloud. So this here is going to be a cloud system. Now in the cloud system, the voice over IP services provider is providing me with the PBX server, so this is all going to be in one. So now my voice over IP service provider knows how many phones I have. They not only know who I'm calling, but they know how many extensions I have, Since the PBX server is responsible for things like voicemail, they know if I'm using visual voicemail. Since they're responsible for things like ring groups, they're responsible for the PBX, my cloud services provider knows what type of ring groups I have. So they're in control of that system where this phone number will only ring these phones, that phone number will ring everybody, this phone number will ring the receptionist, but without ringing the warehouse or the boss's office. And here's why this is important. This is important because this gives the voice over IP services provider the power to charge you per phone. It gives them the power to charge you per feature. And so I'm just going to use Vonage as an example here. They're not the only provider by any means. There are thousands of hosted cloud PBX solutions and VoIP providers out there for business. The reason I use Vonage as an example is because it's a popular one that a lot of people have asked me about. So when I've gone out to offices, they've asked, we are about to get a system set up with Vonage. Here's the pricing they gave us. What do you think of it? So I know that a lot of people use Vonage because a lot of people have asked about it and said they're getting it set up. So let's open up a window here where I show you how Vonage business phone systems work. All right, so we go to plans and pricing here. Let's zoom in a little bit. So here we go. So price per extension, $39.99 per month per line, unlimited. Now, that sounds great, right? So it's only $40 a month per line, but here's the thing. It's per extension. So if you have a small, and here's where it really gets tricky, because you're using their PBX, therefore they know how many phones you have, therefore they can bill you per phone. So if I'm using a system like the one that I have now, where I have the PBX at my business, they don't know how many phones I have. They can only bill me on minutes, which is much different than billing me based on the phone. So my business right now has 4 phones. So with Vonage, that would cost $39.99 times 4. So that's going to be somewhere around $160 a month. Now, let's say I expand and I have 1,000 phones. It doesn't matter if I'm using only twice as many minutes. They're going to be billing me based on 1,000 phones. And that is, again, that's where scalability comes into play. So scalability is a really important thing. If you put together an office phone setup and they say that they have, let's say, 4 or 5 users, and you put together something and you give them a price, if they wind up getting some type of venture capital funding where now they have 500 people working for them and they figure out that they're going to have to pay about 100 or 200 times as much money for their phone system, that's one of those things where they're not going to be very happy, and you're going to be at a crossroads where you can either tell them suck it up and deal with it, very unhappy customer, or you can tell them, well, we can migrate you to a new system. But here's the problem. You have all these users with all these extensions. Every extension has every one of these phones here, every one of these phones has a username and a password and an extension. Then there's the voicemail box. So there's the voicemail box that you would have to migrate the voicemail from. If you're doing call recordings, you have to migrate the call recordings over. If you have ring groups where different phone numbers will ring different phones in your business, now you have to migrate all those settings over. And it's very, very rare, if it ever happens in technology, where migrating a system from one system to another system is easy or convenient. Often migrating is a complete and utter nightmare where you're doing things manually, or you're using a tool to do the migration, but the tool doesn't copy over certain things properly, and you only figure out that it didn't copy them properly when it didn't work, and it turns into a total nightmare. So what you want to be doing is thinking about the scalability of your business or the solution that you're offering. Is this a solution that will scale? If it does scale, is this a solution, again, can I go from 5 users to 1,000 users easily? And if it does it scale well? Will it work well when I scale? Does it scale affordably? When I get 1,000 more users, am I going to be paying 1,000 times more money for the system? Now, the other thing here, again, since the PBX is going to be responsible for things like voicemail, let's just hit learn more over here and see the features they have. The PBX is responsible for voicemail. The PBX is responsible for ring groups. The PBX is responsible for recording. What they can do here is they can actually charge you by the feature. So see all these features? Now, a lot of these features are features that are actually available for free. These are features that I can set up within my free PBX software for free. And not only are they charging you for the feature, but they're charging you for the feature per extension. So you can... Now, I got that feature for free. Let's say it wasn't available for free. Let's say I have to pay $200 for the extension. There are a lot of these extensions for PBX software, like free PBX, where you pay $100 and it's yours. That feature is now mine, $100. Now, let's say I have 1,000 extensions and I want call recording on them with this system. If I want call recording on demand over here, it says something, recording on demand, $5 a month per extension. So not only am I paying $5 a month, but I'm paying $5 a month per extension. You know, stuff like this, that can, like this can add, that basic little feature over there can add up to $5,000 a month if you want that specific one. So recording company calls is $50 a month, which again, something I get for free. If you want recording on demand, the recording on demand feature is $5 a month per extension. So since you're within, so now you're within their environment. So see, the PBX is being provided to you by the VoIP services provider, which means that they can bill you for a number of different things that before they weren't able to bill you for. So again, if the box is located in my business, then you can't bill me by the features that I'm using in my box because it's my box. But if that computer is located, if that PBX server is located at the voice over IP services provider, they can now bill me for the services that they're offering because they're the one offering the PBX. Therefore, they're the ones offering the features. So there's just an unlimited range of possibilities where you can get bent over and nickeled and dimed by your voice over IP services provider if they're providing you with the phone system. Again, it looks good initially because you're not doing the maintenance on it and you're not dealing with, you know, and they have the PBX for you and it's only $40 a month. That may look great for 1 or 2 phones, but scale it. Scale it to 5 phones, scale it to 10 phones, scale it to 100 phones, and you're going to see that it doesn't necessarily scale very well. So just to give you an idea here of what I pay for my service, I'm going to log into my voice poll setup. So yeah, I forgot to type .com like a noob. So I'm going to log into my system over here. Let's go to billing. Okay, so let's see what I pay on average per month. So keep in mind that before, it was $40 a month per extension. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of math here, and I like to use Google as my calculator. So what I have to do is I have to add up all these charges. So the first thing I have to add up is that I pay $11 a month per phone number. So I have one phone number, which means that I'm paying $11 a month. And over here, let's see how many months we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so we have 14 months, so 11 times 14. Then we have this $20 fee that was assessed 4 times. So we add plus 20 times 4. And now we have to add up the usage over here. So I'm probably going to fast forward this because I'm terribly slow at typing numbers. So the whole idea here is to figure out what it is I'm paying per month versus what I would be paying with somebody like Vonage. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that I have 4 phones at my business. The 4 phones that I have are ringing off the hook nonstop. I have to have my phone on Do Not Disturb so I can even do a video without being distracted and caught off guard by it constantly. I have visual voicemail. I have where I can see my voicemails. I have voicemail box for every individual user here. I can use on-demand call recording. All of that stuff is provided to me by my PBX. So I'm not paying for those features. I don't have to pay for those features. Okay, so this little formula is going to tell me what it is I pay monthly for my phone system once I divide it by 14. So let's just take this number, let's Google it. So it comes out to $353.33. I take $353.33, I'm going to divide that by 14 months. And when I divide that by 14 months, it comes out to $25.24 approximately. Just make sure that my formula makes sense here. 5, 6. Yeah, so that pretty much that makes sense so far. Hopefully I didn't get any numbers wrong. But as you can see, what I'm paying right now is about what I pay is anywhere from $25 to $30 a month for my system. I have 4 phones. Those 4 phones ring off the hook all the time. And I have all of those extra features that you would usually have to pay for. And I get all those features for free. And now this system is scalable. So again, if I want to have 1,000 phones at my business, I can have 1,000 phones at my business right now, and those 1,000 phones are not going to cost me more money than the cost of me actually buying the phone. So I could have 1,000 phones here, and I'm only going to be paying by the usage, by how much those phones are actually making phone calls. So this system is very, very scalable and very affordable. So you have to think about this if you're putting a phone system in for what is a growing company. If they're a company with 50 users, and you think 2 years from now they may have, instead of 50 users, they'll have 2,000 users. If you put in a cloud system and you don't look up what the rates are or the discount volume pricing is for that cloud system, you may realize that they don't have any available or that they're really bad, and you may wind up paying per extension, per feature for all these different things, and you're going to be paying a lot of money for service that you're not necessarily using. By owning your PBX, you own the feature set. So again, I can't be billed for visual voicemail by extension. I can't be billed for on-demand recording by extension. I can either have the functionality in the PBX that I buy, or I can buy an extension for that PBX that then allows me to use that on every single one of the phones that I have here. So owning the PBX gives you a great degree of control over finances, pretty much. Again, I'm not being nickeled and dimed for all those features. I'm paying less money per month to have 4 extensions than one of my clients is paying per extension. So one of his extensions in his office, without any of these cool features, costs more money than my entire business phone system does. And that's one of the benefits of having a local system, is that you can configure it exactly the way you want. You can pick out the features you want, and you don't get, and again, you don't get nickeled and dimed on the features the same way. Now, there are a lot of companies out there that have maybe better, more competitive rates than Vonage does. Again, the only reason I use them as an example is because they're an example that's been brought up to me by clients that we've done business with in the past, and they're also a common one that I see in small business phone setups. All right, so now I want to demonstrate with a Voice Pulse quote that I received. And by the way, I like Voice Pulse. I think Voice Pulse is an excellent company. I'm just using this to get a point across. I asked them for a quote on a small phone system for about 7 lines, and this is what I got. So you can see here that it's $40 a month for the PBX, $90 a month for the minutes. Then you're paying again for the extensions. So again, you're paying per extension per month. You're paying for this PBX. This PBX only supports 8 extensions. So again, my PBX that I have 4 phones attached to it. I'm not kidding. The highest ever CPU load spike I've seen on that machine was probably like 12% on a Core 2 Duo. And what my PBX cost was $80 plus the cost of the new hard drive that I put in it. That PBX has worked for years. That PBX is using free software. It's using free PBX, which is free, and it hasn't cost me any money. This is $40 a month. If I want to expand it, I would have to change from Virtual PBX Small. So you see here, this is Virtual PBX Small. Small PBX supports up to 8 extensions. If I want more extensions, I need a bigger PBX, which I imagine would mean bigger monthly fee, and then I'd have to pay, again, more money per extension. So the point I'm trying to get across here is not that any of these things are necessarily, they're bad. I just want you to realize that this exists. I want you to understand your options, and I want you to understand how it is companies are going to bill you based on what you ask them for. If I ask you for SIP trunking, where you bill me based on usage, you're going to sell me something different than if I ask you for a phone system that's hosted in the cloud with a PBX and extensions and blah, blah, blah. Both of them will get you a working phone system, but one of them may wind up costing you a lot more money down the line, and especially if you plan on expanding that system, you're going to expand, again, how much money you're spending per month more on average with a cloud-based system than you are with a local-based system. And again, I'm not going to say which one is going to be best for you. That depends on your needs, on your situation, and on what you're setting up. What I'm trying to do here is not tell you what you should be using. What I'm trying to do here is simply make you aware of the options so that you can choose the option that's best for you. Remember, I don't have a horse in this race. I don't get paid for setting up one type of system versus another type of system. I get paid when somebody says, I want you to set up phones. I want you to set up cameras. I want you to set up my office network. How I do it doesn't really matter because, again, they're going to pay us either way. What matters is that I put something together that works. So what you choose, whether it's local or cloud, I don't really care because it doesn't affect me. What affects me is whether or not I put together the right solution for somebody so that they're happy with it instead of putting together the wrong solution for them so that they're mad. But yeah, those are some of the pluses and disadvantages. So again, when you walk into an environment and you're deciding what type of system to put in, you have to figure out what type of environment it actually is. Again, if it's an environment where you see that all their systems are just hodgepodge together, and there's, extension cord to 6-tap to extension cord to 6-tap to extension cord to outlet that's kind of falling out of the wall, and the switch is on a shelf that you can't even see the lights on it because it's covered in wires, you probably don't want to put a local phone system in there. You probably want to sell them on some type of cloud-based solution and tell them what's going to happen if they scale. And if you are walking into an office where everything is neat, nice, pristine, and you're close by, or they have IT people on staff, then it makes total sense to put together a local system. But again, what you put together is going to depend on what you need, and it's going to depend on what you're looking for. So, it's not about what I'm saying is best for you. It's not about what some website blog is saying is best for you based on the type of systems that they're trying to sell you on. It's going to be based on what it is what you actually need in your specific situation.